All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice exam series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, please let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A car's seatbelt alarm continues to beep until the driver buckles their seatbelt. When the driver does buckle the seatbelt, the alarm stops. In the future, the driver will buckle their seatbelt when the alarm is beeping. What is changing the driver's behavior? So we're looking at a behavior change question. And with behavior change, we're thinking consequences. Consequences affect future behavior. Our consequences are reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. And so when we're thinking about reinforcement, punishment, and extinction, we're trying to see, is the person's behavior increasing or decreasing in the future? If it's increasing, it must be reinforcement. If it's decreasing, it's going to be punishment or extinction. In this case, we know there's a seatbelt alarm that's going to beep until that driver buckles the seatbelt. When the driver does buckle the seatbelt, the alarm stops. So the consequence of buckling the seatbelt is the removal of that alarm noise. And what happens is when that alarm stops, it's reinforcing the driver. So now the driver is buckling their seatbelt when the alarm is beeping, because the alarm beeping is signaling to the driver, if you buckle your seatbelt, you can take away that alarm noise. So we have two things there. One, the driver's behavior is increasing. In the future, they're doing this behavior more. So one, the consequence is going to be reinforcing. Then we have to ask ourselves, is it positive or negative? Is the consequence a stimulus being added or taken away? Well, in this case, when we buckle the seatbelt, that alarm beeping goes away. So the alarm is being removed. So A, positive reinforcement. We know it's reinforcement, but it isn't positive because the consequence is the removal. So B, negative reinforcement, is what we're looking for. C, positive punishment. It's not punishment, right? Again, the behavior is increasing or at least maintaining. So the driver is being reinforced through the removal of the alarm, which means what is changing the driver's behavior is B, negative reinforcement. A baker is learning how to properly frost a cake. At first, the baker was using large and uneven patterns to frost the cake. After some training, the baker is now using small and precise patterns. What describes the baker engaging in one response over another? So be very specific here, right? The question wants to know about the responses, right? Not necessarily how the baker got there, but the baker engages in one response over another. And what are those responses? Well, they're frosting a cake. And when they first frost a cake, they use these large and uneven patterns. Now they use small and precise patterns. So what the baker is doing is using one response instead of another. And how do we get there? Well, their behavior may have been shaped. There may have been some differential reinforcement involved, things like extinction and positive or negative reinforcement. But the question wants to know about the idea of using one response instead of another. And when we have multiple responses and we are choosing between one or engaging in one over another, we call that A, response differentiation. Another example may be if I ask a client to point to the green card instead of grabbing the green card, that's response differentiation. You've got these multiple responses available, and we're picking one over the other. The baker is now differentiating between small and precise patterns and the large and uneven patterns. Stimulus discrimination is discriminating between stimuli. Don't get the responses and the stimuli confused. Stimulus discrimination is just the ability to tell the difference between different things, right? Green versus blue, for example. This has to do with the responses of the baker. And then C and D, shaping and extinction. It's likely that some sort of shaping or extinction was used to get to the point where response differentiation is possible, but that isn't what the question is asking about. So B or C and D won't be our answers. What we're looking at here is going to be response differentiation. Notice we read every answer choice even though A was our answer. You want to do that for every single question. Understand why the wrong answers are wrong. It's going to make the right answers easier to find. You, a behavior technician, started on a new client on Monday. 2 days later, you see the client's mom at your Pilates class in the morning. What should you do to avoid dual relationships in this scenario? All right, what are dual relationships? It's when we cross the boundary between professional and personal. You, as a technician, are with a client and with a family in a professional setting, in a professional relationship, in a professional environment. That is what you're there to do. You're there to do a job. Do we need to build rapport? Of course. Can we maintain a friendly environment? Absolutely, you want to. But you are not their friends. You are their technicians. You are there to work. Now, if you have a situation where you have a new client and then you see that the client's mom is at your Pilates class, what are you supposed to do? What can you do in this situation? Because you obviously are still allowed to have your life, but now you've got a situation where you're in a social setting with the client's mom. What should you do to avoid a dual relationship in this scenario? A, you must find the new Pilates studio. Not necessarily. There, you can manage this situation where you can exist in this social setting with the client's mom without making it a dual relationship. So you don't have to necessarily find a new Pilates studio. B, you must avoid talking to the mom altogether. Also, not necessarily true. Now, should you be the one to approach the mom? Probably not, just because of HIPAA, because of privacy. If the mom approaches you, then you're totally fine. You want to be careful about what you're talking about in public, but you don't have to avoid talking to the mom altogether. You don't have to make things weird. C, you must avoid engaging with the mom socially outside of that Pilates class. This is what you have to do. You have to avoid, let's say, the mom coming up to you and saying, well, let's get coffee after class. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't plan your Pilates class with the mom. If it just so happens you're in the same place at the same time, that's one thing. But you can't start planning around where that mom is going to be, because now you've established more of a personal relationship instead of strictly professional. And then D, you must ask to come off the case you started. No, you're not in a dual relationship yet. You're trying to avoid getting in the situation where a dual relationship forms. So what should you do to avoid dual relationships? Is you must avoid engaging with the mom socially outside of that Pilates. A librarian is interested in how long patrons spend using the library computers. They record the amount of time each patron spends at the computer from the moment they sit down until they leave. This is an example of blank. So we have a measurement question, and we know this because we are recording some sort of behavior. And when we are looking at measurement, we want to think first, are we looking at how long or how many? If we're thinking about how many, it's typically going to be a count, maybe frequency, maybe rate. If we're thinking how long, that's going to be more along the lines of duration and into response time and latency. This librarian wants to know how long patrons use the computers. So this is going to be some sort of time measurement. Now, when does the measurement start? Well, it starts when they sit down and it ends when they leave. So the librarian is measuring a discrete response for it, right? Each response, each use of computer is being measured. What is that an example of? A, frequency of recording. Well, it goes back to what we were just talking about. We're not looking at how many, we're looking at time. We're looking at how long. So it's not going to be frequency. We're not counting how many people are using computers necessarily. We're just talking about how long they're using them for. Same thing with B, rate recording. With rate, you have to have a frequency, and then you're going to put that over a time. We're not taking a frequency. We're not using rate. What about C, duration? Well, if I'm measuring how long you use a computer, how long you're doing something, I am measuring duration. Duration is how long a response occurs. What about inter-response time? Inter-response time is time in between responses. So if you were going to use inter-response time in this scenario, the librarian might measure how long from the moment someone stops using a computer to the moment someone starts using it, the time in between computer use. Inter-response time is more time in between, where duration is more time of each response. So in this case, if you're recording the amount of time the patron is spending at the computer from when they sit down until they leave, you are looking at duration recording. Tim is driving and sees the light change from green to yellow. Tim taps on his brake to start to slow his car down. In this scenario, Tim tapping his brake is an example of what? Straightforward question. Let's not overthink this. We're looking at Tim tapping his brake. And why is he doing that? Well, he's driving. He sees the light change. And so what is the light change doing? It is now evoking Tim tapping on his brake. So Tim tapping his brake is an example of what? A stimulus. The stimulus is not Tim tapping his brake. The stimulus is the light change. That is the change in the environment, which is leading to the response of Tim tapping the brake. What's the consequence? Well, the consequence is car slows down. So our stimulus, light changes. Our response is Tim taps his brake. The consequence, the car slowed down. So in this scenario, Tim tapping his brake is an example of a response. Very easy question. Don't overthink it. Answer it. Move on. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. Be sure to subscribe for all of our videos. We also have BCBA videos, so once you pass your RBT, if you're looking to go further, be sure to stick around for those BCBA videos. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout-out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.